Hello and welcome back to RageGamingVideos. My name is Hollow and I'm back for a new tier list video. Now we're revisiting one that I've kind of made a video on this topic before, about the best strength weapons, but to be honest, back then I was very much basing it on numbers, on AR, not movesets, not effectiveness, and also pre-buffs of say 1.04, where a lot of colossal weapons, well, they're a lot better these days. Certain Ashes of War actually work now, and certain Ashes of War have better recovery times, as well as the fact that you can cancel out of some of them. So an up-to-date version with better context and experience of myself, since it's been months now, we're back for the best strength weapons of Elden Ring. I've got myself 14 weapons that I consider some of the best options that you can go for. To explain the point of each tier though, S is your perfect and unique weapon. It is the peak of its weapon type and does something better than every other weapon type that's comparable below it. A is also incredible, but it's lacking in that same, unique possibility and power of an S tier. B is fun and effective, but it certainly has weaknesses compared to A. It might even be a weaker version of something we've already seen. And lastly, the C tier is essentially something that is good in specific situations. Generally, it's going to come down to how long this weapon is actually effective, but it's still relevant. Once again, though, any weapon on this list is one of the best strength weapons in the game. So if I put something at an A and then something at a B, know that they're both very good weapons. With all of that said, let's begin then. Let's get the obvious thing out of the way, shall we? The Giant Crusher is obviously an S tier strength weapon. It is the highest AR strength weapon you can find in the game. It comes with a unique heavy attack which does even more damage, and using this weapon I was able to do nearly 16,000 damage in one single hit to a boss. And there's been people who've used this weapon to kill every boss in the game in one single hit. There is a reason that they all pick this weapon, and it's because it is just the most effective for single hits in the game. I find it super repetitive with its colossal hammer moveset, but it's still very cool and fun to use. Now we've sat with an S tier pick, let's move on to a C tier pick. At the very bottom of this list, I am going to put the Golden Halberd. Once again, if it's made it onto this list, it's a very good weapon, and this is by no means a bad weapon, and you can get it instantly from the Tree Sentinel, literally outside of the first step, the first place you're gonna go. It's entirely possible then for you to get this weapon and then start using it at the beginning of your playthrough, and it serves as one of the best strength options throughout the early and mid game. It comes with a self buff to increase its own AR, and while its simplistic moveset is a bit dull, it will see you through those first bosses and basically get you to your actual strength weapon for that playthrough that you want to use. It's fun, it's effective, it just doesn't last forever and doesn't scale into the end game well. Let's move on with an A tier pick then. We're gonna go for this hammer. The Prelates Inferno Crozier is straight up another colossal hammer with high AR. But it is kind of awkward. It's an A tier pick because it's still, one of the highest AR weapons in the game. It's just basically the Giant Crusher, but worse. It doesn't come with that unique heavy attack that is so powerful of the Giant Crusher. It has the same colossal hammer moveset. It's just not as effective as, the Giant Crusher, which is fair enough. That thing is ridiculous. It's still a very fun and effective weapon, and it looks really cool, but it just can't compete. So it's of course going to be in tier A rather than S. Let's talk about another colossal weapon with, the same moveset in fact. This is the Falling Star Beastjaw, and it is an int strength weapon. Super effective because it has this Ash of War that calls down this spike gravity shot, and it's so strong. It does so much damage. In PvP, it's well funny at range. You just spam it on someone and end up clipping loads of health, and it can range stagger in PvE. It's super strong. The colossal weapon itself, it's got the same kind of hammer moveset as the other two we've mentioned here, and ultimately it has lower AR and output than the others. We can buff it up because it's magical damage, but that only lasts a certain amount of time. And as cool and brutal as this weapon looks, it is just, the worst version of the other two, even more so, but with a better Ash of War in my opinion. I really, really like this weapon, but it's got a bit of a samey moveset. I don't really like the hammer colossal moveset, as I've said. So while it's strong in the places that it is strong, it is outclassed by other weapons and repetitive to play in my opinion. Speaking of that colossal moveset, my god, we're just talking about all of the same moveset. Another colossal weapon moveset that's like a hammer. This is, in fact, the Staff of the Avatar, and I think is quite underrated. It has some of the highest AR in the game, it's ridiculously strong, but with that generic colossal hammer moveset, again, repetitive, very limited playstyle. The Ash of War actually works though. It used to not. The description said it's like the legendary best butt slam attack that you can get in the game, and it literally did not work for a long period. In the last patch they fixed it, and now you do this golden slam, which is, the best butt slam. Funny, effective, rather silly, bit of hyper armor on it, bit hard to land in PvP unless you trade, and in PvE you can just slam it out and that is fun. But it's just not a very exciting weapon, as good as its AR actually is and as fun as the butt slam is. So it's a B tier pick for me. Alright, let's get into some colossal swords, shall we? Let's start with the S tier pick then. It's the Greatsword, and if you've watched any videos from me, you should know that this is one of my favorite weapons in the game. Of course, it's an S tier pick. It's the colossal Greatsword, right? You've got the buffs from 1.04, so better two-hand damage. You've got better blocking, and also it's got better attack speed now. You can put basically any awesome Ash of War on it, whether you're doing the Bloodhound Step to harass people in PvP. The Giant's Hunt, which is absolutely ridiculous damage. Lion's Claw, with its nuts hyper armor, greatly improved in the recent patch, a brilliant Ash of War, or whatever you choose to use on this weapon, it's likely going to be very effective. And it's buffable. We can use any grease on this and then buff that up with different self buffs, getting absolutely outrageous AR. Before all of this, it was like the third highest strength weapon in terms of AR, and now it's just a ridiculous weapon with its new attack speed. You cannot go wrong with the Greatsword, and it's great in single target or AoE thanks to its moveset. So let's talk about other colossal swords then, like for example, the Ruins Greatsword, which I consider an A tier pick. Also one of the highest AR strength weapons in the game, and it comes with a unique Ash of War as well as a heavy attack. So the Ash of War is like the Blasphemous Blade Ash of War. You do the long range slam, and it just shoots out this magic gravity attacks. Great damage, great stagger potential. Yeah, really effective. And certainly good in invasions where you can catch people out from like sneaky positions. But not nearly as effective though in straight duels where people are just going to avoid it quite easily. The heavy R2 is cool and unique with that sort of gravity slam, but it doesn't really do that much more than a heavy of any other weapon. And it's not as versatile as, say, the Greatsword because it's stuck with that one Ash of War. So it's strong. I think it's quite ugly. It's an effective colossal sword, certainly very strong, but not as good as the Greatsword, which is very versatile by comparison. But there's another Greatsword we can talk about that can go straight into the A tier. This is the Royal Greatsword. Thanks to those colossal sword buffs, this weapon baseline is now incredible with the same moveset as the Greatsword. Just effective. You got that crouch poke, you got the wide swings. It's just a great weapon. It also looks really nice because of that clean design. This is another int weapon though, and another int colossal sword at that. So we're able to buff it up in terms of damage super well, and it's so strong thanks to its Ash of War, that flip slam, the Wolf's Assault. That thing has hyper armor, so you can trade with it in PvP super well, or in PvE, and you're going to stagger and do huge burst damage. The DPS potential of just spamming this Ash of War is nuts. The problem, though, is you will get completely stuck in that flip. There is no way to cancel out of that. You're just stuck in it. If you miss this in PvP, someone can back up and just hit you with some ranged attacks, whether that's spells, incantations, or whatever. You're just stuck in this animation, and that also means you're going to be trading with that in PvE in many scenarios. So while you do big damage, you also take big damage doing that. A great weapon, less versatile than the Greatsword, still a top pick and one of my favorites in the whole damn game. But we got to talk about more colossal swords because there are so many strength colossal swords in this game. Like, for example, the Godslayer Greatsword. This is an awesome faith-based colossal sword, and of course enjoys the same patch buffs as the rest. But it has a unique attack combo that's more vertical and actually even faster than you might expect from colossal swords. I also love the design of this thing. It has awesome buff potential with its split damage of fire and physical, and it also has a special Ash of War on top of everything else, which deals black fire, dealing damage on hit and damage over time, kind of like Destined Death, but not quite as strong. However, this specific Ash of War is just so effective. It's a two-parter. You do the initial upward swing, which does damage and catches people out in PvP very quickly, great for trading, and then you have the follow-up swing, which is enhanced by the black fire, greatly increasing the range of the attack, dealing burst damage, and if it hits, damage over time, which we can follow up with another strike for a two-part hit of this combo, with the same upward hit and Blackfire swing. In this patch, it's one of the rare you can cancel out of it using a roll Ashes of War. Just overall, it's such a strong weapon. It's so versatile. It has the roll cancel on an Ash of War, which is so good. And it's got that fast, unique baseline vertical swing for a colossal sword. One of my favorite weapons of the game as well is absolutely brilliant. But I should mention another colossal sword, and faith one at that. This is Maliketh's Black Blade. The reason that it's a B tier under the A tier is because, well, it's quite literally, yeah, straight one for one comparable to the Godslayer Greatsword, and I think it's not as good. It's got the similar colossal sword moveset, right? Just brilliant, but with slightly less potential and a worse Ash of War, despite the fact that it's got Destined Death on it, which will deal damage to the enemy as you hit them, deal damage over time, and reduce their overall health by 10% for a period. It's a 3-part hit where you do the downward slam, the explosion, the damage over time, but it is an Ash of War that is very long and you are vulnerable during it and you're stuck in it, meaning you have to trade with this thing 9 times out of 10 instead of the versatility and freedom of the Godslayer version. Technically, it has more potential because of the Destined Death effect, but it's just harder to get off in a safe way. And you're kind of forced to spam the Ash of War because you're wanting to try to maintain that Destined Death effect on the enemy. So absolutely awesome. Love this thing. So much potential, but it's a little bit too restricted compared to the Godslayer Greatsword. All right, more technical colossal swords here. We have the Starcourge Greatswords, a weapon that splits into 2 and you can dual wield them using light attacks instead of the usual power stance attack button. As cool as these things are, that sadly leads to a limited moveset because you block when you press L1 instead of doing a different moveset, leading to mostly just swings and slams that are fun and cool and effective, but pretty repetitive. And like I say, it's a limited moveset because of that. The whole point of this weapon is to use both at once, right? And if you use a heavy attack, you will use just one. So you're basically stuck to using just the light attack combos. Like I say, pretty repetitive and simple. Still, it's a very effective weapon and comes with that gravity pull in and explosion Ash of War, which looks and feels incredible, but is super easy to interrupt in both PvP and PvE. I still love using these though, and I love catching people out with that explosion. They don't seem to realize how big of an AoE it actually is. Awesome weapon, cool boss weapon at that, just not as effective as the other colossal swords that I've mentioned in A and S. Okay, lastly, our last colossal sword I'm going to talk about, I swear, there's so many though. This is the Grafted Blade Greatsword. It was specifically buffed in patch 1.04, making it a much more relevant weapon, just still not as good as the other ones on this list. Its Ash of War is a self-buff, giving you poison, a whole other bunch of benefits like stats, and it comes with the standard Colossal Sword moveset, which is great. It just doesn't have as much raw power and AR as the others, and it is a limited weapon because you can't change its Ash of War to something maybe more versatile for different situations. You can't buff it in the same amount of ways you can with the other weapons here, but it's certainly a lot better than it was, and it's relevant now because you can get it super early from Castle Morn and run this for quite a while until you get a different, say, colossal sword that you prefer to use. And it's a cool as hell weapon just to look at. It's made of all these different blades. I really like it, and it is now a relevant strength weapon, but compared to the rest, it's got to be in the C tier. All right, I only have 2 more weapons for you. Let's just get it out the way. We have the last S tier weapon that I'm going to include on this video. This is the Nightriders Glaive, an S scaling weapon. It looks incredible, and it's a fast swinging one at that. This is something I've been seeing more and more in PvP these days for good reason, because it's buffable with so many elements and so effective with all of them, leading to a variety of builds. So yeah, it's literally an S scaling strength weapon, so high AR, and an awesome moveset to go with it. You compare this with something simple like the Sword Dance Ash of War. Oh my god, does this weapon absolutely destroy targets in both PvE and PvP. There's nowhere that this weapon isn't super effective, and it's definitely one of the best strength weapons in the game. I was sleeping on this for a while, and when I finally used it, I was blown away. Yeah, and actually there's not much more to say about it. It's just really good. For our last weapon on this list then, I have a really hard time deciding, and I'm going to decide right now, whether this is an A pick or a B pick weapon. I'll just put it down on the list for a second here. I'm talking about the Magma Worm Scale Sword, a fire and physical curved greatsword with insane buff potential leading to ridiculous AR, and it has a unique heavy attack, which is the Guillotine Slam, as well as an Ash of War that does that Guillotine Slam and spreads Magma in a 2-part combo, which trades super well in PvP. I love trading with that. It even has the rare roll to cancel out of Ash of War effect. It's just its limited time of effectiveness due to, yeah, it being relevant while you're buffed up and not as much when you're not, and the simplistic moveset with surprisingly lower range than expected. I'm unsure whether to put this as an A tier or a B tier pick. I really like it, but I think it definitely has clear weaknesses. So I think I'm actually going to put it as a B tier. I love using this weapon, but it is all about trading and clever timing of your attacks, meaning it certainly has its weaknesses. But there you have it. Those are my best strength weapons and the ordering of them. I'm much happier with this list instead of just the 5 that I talked about originally based purely on AR. This feels much better to me. Let me know what you think. Is there any weapon I should have included in this list? And what would you like to see for another tier list? What topic? If you've enjoyed the video though, please be sure to drop a like on it so we can make more. But for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice. to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.